Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to MSP-TV. Since last time we saw each other on Monday, a lot of stuff has happened here. Yesterday, the countries gave their statements, and we heard from states such as South Africa and Austria, who reminded us of why we are here and why this armament is a pressing issue at the moment, and why we should keep fighting for it. Besides that, we also had some incredible things going on, such as a panel about the true costs of nuclear war with best-selling author Annie Jacobsen and with a bunch of renowned experts. They spoke about what we know, what we don't know, and some challenges about nuclear myths. Besides that, we also had some interesting side events, such as on nuclear justice and on placing humanity at the center of the nuclear debate. There we got to hear from some incredible members of affected communities, such as Masako Wada from Nihon Hidankyo, and such as Hianamuera Morgan Cross and Pinta Iti. And of course, we also had our youth MSP, where hundreds of youths from all over the world, both online and in person, came together to let their voices be heard on the matters of disarmament. And right now, we will start with our first interview block. We have two very special guests today. If I can come here at the screen. We have ICANN Zone, the Deputy Director Daniel Hoogsta, and Belgian Member of European Parliament, Mark Botenga. Thank you both for agreeing to this interview. So if I can start with the first question, Mark, I will start with you. So Belgium is part of the nuclear umbrella and is housing nuclear weapons from the United States on its territory. But this year they are not present at the MSP as they were the years before as observer. Could you tell us why it is such a risk for countries part of the nuclear umbrella to not engage with the global disarmament efforts?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very, it's very clear. Like we have these newly modernized bombs, nuclear bombs of the United States on our territory, meaning, first of all, Belgium can be a target for a preventive or retaliatory strike. But Belgium could also be involved if the United States decides so in actually a first strike, a first use of these nuclear weapons. And that is obviously not in the interest of neither peace anywhere in the world, but also not of the Belgian population. And so the fact that the Belgian government does not even show up here as an observer is absolutely scandalous and is not what the Belgian population wants. The large majority of the Belgians, they don't want they want Belgium to join the treaty to ban nuclear weapons.
Thank you very much for your response. Now, Daniel, so you have worked on treaties such as the TPNW. So can you tell us how campaigners can use international law or treaties such as the TPNW to counter arguments from nuclear weapon states who say that disarmament is here for our safety?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think we can look at the history well, first of all, we can look at what nuclear weapon states and their allies say themselves. They often refer to international law when they are defending themselves. They do not outright reject that international law has any implication. So they de facto acknowledge that it is vital for them. Then we can look at the history of other processes and how stigmatization has led to changes in norm and behavior, the way it affects norms. We're very inspired by the cluster munitions and the landmines campaign. Those were two weapon systems that were also seen as absolutely essential for the defenses of the countries that had them. But then we saw with the treaties being negotiated, you saw a change in the norm, and you saw that governments gradually moved away from using those weapons, having them in their arsenals, and now they are considered to be unacceptable weapons. And that's exactly the inspiration that we're using with the TPNW, and we're quite confident that it is already shaping the norm around this and changing state behavior.
Thank you. Now a question for you both. What advice would you have for politicians in countries that do not support the TPNW, such as yourself, Mark, but you're here anyways? Also, how would you tell them that they can still try to make a change in their country even when their own government doesn't support them? Who wants to start?
I could go. I mean, absolutely. Their role is absolutely critical because they can put this on the political agenda. They can ask difficult questions of their governments. And what we know from government officials that are governments that are complicit in nuclear weapons, they do not like to be put on the spot and to be asked difficult questions about nuclear weapons. They would prefer that the public ignore it or pretend that it doesn't exist for many nuclear weapon complicit states in general. So simply by putting it on the agenda, by asking questions in Parliament, by mandating new studies, studies into the implications of nuclear weapons, they are making a difference. And of course, we also think it's really important for them to meet with their colleagues across borders. We had a parliamentary conference here on Monday where parliamentarians like yourself from different countries were able to meet and strategize. And that's also a hugely important process.
No, I'm going to say a little bit the same thing. I mean, I think it's really important for us to put it on the agenda. To raise awareness, you know, and what I said earlier, like the vast majority of Belgians, but also Italians, French, and throughout Europe are actually opposed to nuclear weapons. And so we need to look for a way to make politicians, to make governments listen to what their people want. Their people want peace. Their people want nuclear disarmament.
Well, you froze with the Wi-Fi, so we're going to have to take that question from the top.
Starting with me, or? I think we're going. Yep.
So you two have some experience here, and Mark, you are here as an MP that's not necessarily being supported by his government right now. So what would both of you guys' advice be for parliamentarians and politicians that support the TPNW but who don't have the backing of their governments?
Well, I mean, first of all, the backing of our government, we're not backing this government. And one of the reasons is because it's not committing to nuclear disarmament. There's many other reasons. It's also antisocial and so on. But one of the main reasons is this, because the majority of the population in Italy, in France, in Belgium, you know, is actually in favor of nuclear disarmament, doesn't feel comfortable with nuclear weapons, right? And we need to find a way to make governments listen to their people. And one of the ways is mobilizing, raising awareness, obviously, on the risks. And these risks have grown, you know, the doomsday clock, people looked up, it's never been so close to midnight. So bring the message out there and let's mobilize. And we've seen in the past in Europe that when people mobilize for peace, that they can have results. I'm thinking about the big missile demonstrations in the 80s. I mean, I was hardly born, but you know, it's a magnificent souvenir of what mobilization can bring about.
Yeah, I mean, I just very much agree with that. And I think the role of politicians is, I mean, putting it on the political agenda is hugely important and cannot be undervalued, even when you have a government that is steadfastly opposed to the TPNW. What we know is that politicians do not like to be put on the spot about the nuclear weapon. What the government officials don't like to be put on the spot by politicians about what their policies are in relation to nuclear weapons. It's an incredibly uncomfortable situation for them. So they can really put it on the political agenda that way. Another thing that we find very important is parliamentarians from different countries speaking with each other. As many of them are tackling the same kinds of topics. That's why we had this parliamentary conference here in New York at the 3MSP, which we're very grateful that you participated at, where we had lots of discussions across borders about what we can do to respond to this.
Thank you very much for the great answers to the both of you. And our roaming reporter, Emma, is actually outside to ask people what they think about this topic. So we will head over to Emma right now.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third MSP, to our favorite treaty, of course, the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Now, it is a chilly but auspiciously sunny day here in New York City, and the first order of business is that we need to go pick up our passes, so let's go.
Every day when you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet has an original point of view.
All right, pass collection was surprisingly quick and easy, so I'm already in through security. We're about to enter the UN building, and we're going to find some campaigners and see what their hopes are for this week and how they're feeling on this first day.
I'm
We are currently experiencing a technical glitch, but which is all right because we have two incredible people to interview today. I would like to introduce you, Miho Tanaka and Masako Wada. Hi, very nice to have you here. Yeah, of course. A lot of you watching are perhaps already familiar with one of our interviewees, Miss Wada. It is an incredible honor to have you here, and congratulations on the 2024 Peace Prize. It is highly deserved. So, as for my first question, Miss Wada, so you and the rest of the Hibakusha have been inspiring us younger generations in this work for years, and to make sure that what happened to you would never happen again. What advice would you give us to walk into your footsteps and to make real, tangible change?
ありがとうございます。今日皆さんにお話しすることができて本当に嬉しく思います。
I'm very happy to be here to be speaking with you all.
私たちがノーベル賞をいただいたということですね。これはその理由として私たちがずっとやってきたことが評価していただいたということになります。
So Nihon Hidankyo received the Nobel Peace Prize last year, but I think the reason why we received the Nobel Peace Prize is because we continued to do what we did.
軍縮、核兵器の廃絶、それもずっとやってきたことだということです。これがどうやってそれを成し遂げたかというと、言葉で、証言で、個々の働き、一人一人の名もない被爆者たちが話を続けてきたこと、それが大きな力になったということです。
So we have been working towards disarmament, nuclear weapons abolition, and we have been using words, testimonies, and each individual hibakusha, one of us, all of us are nameless, but together we have worked so that we can push for nuclear disarmament and nuclear weapons abolition.
これを使わなかった歴史をただ伸ばすだけではなくて、これを本当廃絶に向けて私たちは働かなければいけないということを強く思っております。
Of course, we don't want nuclear weapons to be ever used again, but at the same time, we want to make sure they are abolished, not just being used, but we want them to be abolished.
私たちの働きがどんなものであったかということ、本当に草の根の運動です。草の根の運動だったということを皆さんと一緒に心に留めていただきたいと思います。力のない者一人一人が力を合わせたら大きな結果が出たということ、喜びが出たということです。
So I just want to emphasize that grassroots movement can work. Each person's, power might be small, but together the power will be greater. So I just wanted to emphasize that grassroots movement has worked, and that I think that's what we have proved. And I want you and other people to believe in that too.
これが第12条ですね。不変化という言葉がありますけれども、これはラティフィケーションだけではなくて、不変化という、批准するということではなくて、これを証言をもっと広める、そういう意味での不変化でもあるということです。
So I think one of the key words this time is universalization of the treaty. Of course, I want the treaty to be universalized, but at the same time, we want Hibakusha's testimonies to be universalized as well.
Thank you very much for your response. Miho, so this year it will be 80 years since the sad happenings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which is very important not only for the Hibakusha but also for the younger generations of Japan who have seen some of their grandparents, their great-grandparents suffer through this. So what does this year mean for you, and what do you hope to see from other young campaigners?
Okay, thank you. So when you hear it's 80 years, like many people tend to think about it's a history, but it's not just like that. Like it's something we have to act on it. It's not just a past thing. So I have to keep telling it to the world. And also it's nuclear deterrence, nuclear risks are very rising right now. And governments, including Japan, keeps rely on the nuclear deterrence theory. But we have to engage with policymakers, and they keep telling that it's very difficult to change the course, but we have to tell them that the hardships in the nuclear disarmament talk cannot compare to what Hibakusha experiences. So yeah, I have to keep telling it to the politicians.
Thank you very much for your response. And now a question for the both of you. What do you both expect from this year's MSP? And what results do you hope will be achieved after this year?
一人一人が核兵器が使われたらどうなるかということをしっかりと心に留めていただきたいということですね。実相、リアリティ、使われたらどうなるかということを本当に知っていただきたいという思いがいたします。絶対に使われてはならないという兵器だということをもう一度皆さんの心に留めていただきたい。それをまたキャンペーナーのお一人お一人が本当に何が起こったかということを心に留めて、そしてそれを原動力にしていただきたい。こういう世界が二度と再び起こってはいけないということを元にして活動を始めていただきたいということを心から願っております。
I want every single person who is here present at the conference to really think once again about the reality of what happens when a nuclear weapon is detonated, is used. And I want people to know again what the reality is. And we want people to remind themselves that this is a weapon that should never, ever be used again. And that's our wish, hope for the conference, as well as a request to the campaigners that they can recall once again what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and take that as a motivation to push disarmament forward so that we don't need to see that kind of scene ever again in this world.
My focus on this MSP is how we can make forward step to nuclear victim assistance. And I met so many survivors here at the MSP, and I'm so energized myself, and I'm very hopeful. There are so many like-minded people at the MSP, not just MSP, but in the side events or everywhere. So I'm so excited to our work next in the future, and I want to continue to work together and make our civil power the maximum to for the nuclear-free world.
Thank you so much for the interview. Thank you to both of you. Ms. Wada, it was an immense pleasure to meet you. And of course you too, Miho.
Thank you so much.
And now we will interview one of ICANN's own, Seth Sheldon, who will come and tell us a little bit about universalization, and he will take one of the questions from the audience that came from Daniele from Italy. Hi, Seth.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
No, you need that back.
So for our question, once again from Daniele from Italy, thank you. Don't forget to go to MSP-TV to do the same. How does the treaty play a role in the context of the current geopolitical tensions, particularly with the growing competitions amongst nuclear powers?
Thank you for the question, Daniela. And yes, I certainly agree that the geopolitical landscape is as volatile and grim as it has been in the nuclear age, arguably, with multilateral frameworks continuing to crumble. But this is a reason why I do think that the TPNW and the timing of 3MSP is so compelling, because as this cooperation deteriorates in other spaces, in this space we are seeing that we have a collection of states that are working amicably and actively on issues which they all agree on, which is that nuclear weapons are illegal and must be urgently eliminated. And I think it's useful to note, too, that this collection of states is now growing larger since 2 MSP. A number of new states have joined the treaty, and so we're convening at 3 MSP with precisely half of the world's countries as states parties or signatories to the TPNW. And also, the next state to sign or to accede will bring the treaty's membership into a global majority, which I think makes the TPNW the antidote in the context of the world's great tensions, because it animates a larger and more unified call for elimination.
Thank you very much, Seth. Now we will go over to our roaming reporter, Emma, who went outside and also interviewed some people on the topics we just discussed. Over to you, Emma.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third day of the 3MSP, to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Now, today also happens to be the International Day for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation Awareness, and before we head into the UN for the side events and plenaries of the day, I've run into an event that I want to show you. This incredible group of campaigners from around the world got up early this morning to hold a rally and march to the U.S. mission to the United Nations to demand that they eliminate their nuclear arsenal, and I bet many of you watching see some of your friends in the crowd.
No more Hiroshima! No more Nagasaki! U.S. bases are everywhere!
I'm Vicki Elson with the Warheads to Windmills campaign. What's happening here right now, it's a march, it's a demonstration in front of the UN, and there are people here from all over the world talking about why abolition and how important it is to them. And we've heard really beautiful speeches from hibakusha, people who have survived nuclear weapons, testing, as well as the actual explosions and the mining of uranium on native lands. So in addition to the obvious reasons for abolishing nuclear weapons, there's living with them right now.
Now, one area of work for the TPNW states has been articulating the security concerns that the policies of nuclear-armed states pose to non-nuclear weapon states. And in this intersessional period between the second meeting of states parties and now the third meeting, Austria has been working hard on this work stream. Let's hear from Austrian Ambassador Alexander Kement on the work that Austria has been doing on the legitimate security concerns and why it's important to them.
So Austria is presenting a report on the security concerns of TPNW states, which we worked on the whole of last year. The discourse about nuclear weapons is dominated by the countries that have these weapons and their concerns. But of course, it's exactly these policies that create security concerns for everybody else and existential risks. So this report, I think, captures very well, very profound security issues for the 150 countries that do not have or do not rely on nuclear weapons.
Now we're about to head into the Trusteeship Council for the plenary meetings for today. Today we will hear discussions on Article 2, which has to do with declarations of possession or ownership of nuclear weapons. We'll also hear discussions on Article 12, which of course has to do with the universalization of the treaty. I'm going to head on in now. On the first day, the room was so full that there was actually a line out the door. It doesn't look like there's a line today. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Naomi.
So, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed being with a roaming reporter. So, now for a last small segment that you will explain to us what else will be happening for the next few days of the MSP and what we can expect and should keep our eyes open for.
Sure. Thank you again, Naomi. So as we are recording, we are in the middle of the general debate of the conference. So we're hearing still initial statements from states parties and observers. And from there, later today, probably we will move into the thematic debate to discuss the different areas of work that states parties are taking forward to implement the treaty. And it will proceed basically by subject matter thematically. We're going to hear from the states that are chairing the informal intersessional working groups and consultative processes to talk about and report on the work that they're doing, and then hear statements from others to respond. And yeah, we'll proceed thematically. So first, they're going to hear about the declarations under the treaty, which, by the way, we've just reached 100% compliance with the declarations requirements under Article 2 of the treaty. Then we'll discuss the work of universalization under Article 12 of the treaty, then the work on disarmament verification under Article 4, then victim assistance and environmental remediation under Articles 6 and 7, national implementation under Article 5, a report from the Scientific Advisory Group, a report on complementarity of the TPNW with other related treaty architectures, a report on gender and the TPNW, and finally, a report on the consultative process of security concerns of TPNW states parties. That's kind of the program. Meanwhile, on the side, we are seeing the states parties negotiate and hopefully reach agreement on outcomes of the treaty, which we hope will be adopted on Friday at the end of the conference, and there will be a series of decisions. We hope to renew and advance the work that's being undertaken intersessionally. We will hear about, there will be a decision, we presume, about the plans for the review conference of the treaty, which will be the next time that the states parties meet. We also hope to see them issue a political declaration that reflects the views of the treaty membership. And finally, well, those are the key, I think, the key things that we're looking for, and a powerful statement from them about advancing a world free of nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth. So as you guys heard, it's going to be jam-packed for the rest of the week. So meanwhile, we'll see you next episode on Friday. Don't forget to submit your questions on MSP_TV via ICANN. Thank you very much for watching.